Happy Thursday to you guys. Thank you so much for joining us with this amazing Cooking with Cannabis class. I'm Marnie. I'm one of your friendly DAs here at Chesacanna. I also have a love for edibles. They really do help me maintain and progress every day, no matter how hard the day is. I'm very excited to tell you that today I have Chef Laurie with us. She is an amazing chef. I'm going to stop talking because I want you all to hear from her just how amazing she is.
Thank you so much, Marnie. Thank you for being here and helping us through this cooking process on the side of the cannabis. She's the resident expert here. And hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I am so excited you're here, and I'm thrilled to be here myself. I am Chef Laurie, and I own a small company called The Private Table, and I am a private chef. And I predominantly cook healthy plant-based meals. Sometimes I incorporate a little bit of fish into my meals, and that's what we're doing today. But I really love and I really enjoy cooking with cannabis, and I think it's very beneficial for those who actually are into it. And don't worry tonight, if you are not into cannabis, and if it's not your thing, it's totally okay. You're still gonna get a lot out of this class because we're cooking a really nice, beautiful meal. So welcome, and we'll get into it. So we're going to start the process just touching upon a little bit about decarboxylation and infusion. And that's, of course, with cannabis. So here, my little setup here.
We can bring it on over and show everyone if you would like.
Yeah. So here we have a little bit of flour, and it has not been decarboxylated yet. And the decarboxylation process is basically just taking the flour, the THCA in the flour, and turning it into THC. It's just by a heating process. And how we do that is, it's very simple. You just take the flour. I'm sure everybody probably knows this, but we're going to break it up just a little bit, okay, in small little pieces. And why we break it up into small little pieces is basically during the heating process, you want it to evenly coat all of the flour, and the heating process will help with turning all of that THCA into THC. So once that's broken up, it doesn't have to be too broken down. There's a couple of different processes that we like to do to heat it up. So basically the one, I think, very popular way is to put it in an oven and about 240 degrees or so for about, what, maybe 30 minutes or so. 45 minutes, I think you have on the sheet here is what I put down. And let that come out of the oven, let it cool, then you can handle it, and we're then gonna infuse it. So the infusion process, I like to take a jar. You can fill it with whatever oil that you are going to be using. You can use olive oil. This is what we're using today. We also have coconut oil you can use, MCT oil. If you're using butter, use butter. Whatever you're using, you're going to put it into your jar. You're going to put your your flour along with it. You're going to marry the two. You're going to close it up, and you can actually take it and put it into a crock pot. But I would put a little bit of maybe a small towel or something under there, fill it with water, and you're going to set that, and the instructions are on the directions that you have there. So that's one method. The other method is a foolproof method, which I actually like and I use at home. I take one of these sealable bags and I put the flour in, of course, already broken up. Take this back out of here. We'll get all the flour in here. Once, of course, it's all broken up. You seal that up. Then you take a food processor, if you have a food processor, or excuse me, not a food processor. Let's think, Lori. You want to take one of these resealable bags and these resealable food savers, and you turn it on, and you're just going to simply seal it up, okay? So now it's sealed, it's secure inside this bag, and it's not getting wet. We're going to submerge that into your pot of water with your sous vide. So you turn your sous vide machine on. Again, the instructions are right here on the list that you have. And we'll fill that with water, turn that on, and we'll let that go for about an hour or so. So those are some of the methods that you can use. You can also do it on the stovetop. So if you had your infused oil in here with your cannabis, you put it on the stovetop in water, heat that up. But the thing is, you have to make sure you're taking a temperature, because you don't want to take a temperature about every 30 minutes. You don't want to go too high, and you don't want it to be too low. So if you go too high, you can actually burn it. So we don't want to get into that. So be very careful and mindful mindful of that. Okay, so those are the methods that we have. And again, this is the method that I prefer because you can sort of set it and forget it. Once it comes out, be really careful. If you're using this method, you want to dry off the bag. Make sure it cools down for maybe about 20 minutes or so. And then you can open it up and then you'll break it up even more. And then that's when you infuse it into your oil. Okay, so be really careful with that. All right, so once everything is infused and you're ready to take your oil out, you're going to strain it. You'd like to take a cheesecloth and make sure you triple it so nothing falls through. And you're going to let that drip drain, and then you're going to take it and you're going to sort of close it around and just gently press. Don't press too hard. You don't want to extract too much, I think, from it because then it'll get too much of a green flavor and it'll really be prominent come through. So you're going to go ahead and strain that out a little bit and again, let it drip, and then you have your infused oil. So put that aside, but there's another easier way. We're going to use today something called turp sap. And this is where Marnie comes in because she's the expert.
I love
going to tell us
sap,
all
everyone.
about turp sap.
I actually learned a great deal about infusing with flour because I don't typically do it just because of the situations, the housing I've lived in. I wanted to be, nice, think about my roommates and all, because flour can be a little on the stinkier side. So y'all know I love me some turp sap. Bring this on up here. So we would be using the Citrus Tsunami today from Rhythm. Rhythm is the only one on the market that makes this very special product. So you're looking at something that's made with live resin. So that's live, fresh frozen flour. You're getting the highest terp count, very clean, very tasty, very potent and effective. Hand that back to you. You are welcome.
So the easiest way to use this, rather than going through the whole process of decarbing and using flour, you just use this. You're going to want to heat up your oil. And then once you have your oil nice and heated, I did it on the stove and then I poured it into this Pyrex. I'm going to take off the little front here. Okay, so now the lid is off. And then all you're going to do is squeeze it right in. And it's a little hard because it's very sticky. It's sort of tar-like.
It's actually coming out a lot faster than I'm used to it coming out.
I'm
impressed.
It is, yeah. But the thing is, you're going to want to make sure that you stir this up really, really well. So incorporate it all throughout just to make sure when you're dosing, you want to get an even dose, right? So it's all broken down and in there. So make sure you stir, 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 and get it all incorporated. That's the main thing about using the turp sap, right?
And if you find that your turp sap is not melting into your oil, all you're going to have to do is heat up that oil again, and everything should melt and whisk together perfectly.
Yeah, so just make sure it's really well incorporated, okay, before you start using it. And then your dosing will be much more accurate. Cool. All right, so now we got all that out of the way. If you have any questions on decarbing, infusing, whatever, just start asking away. Marnie's going to stay on the side here and answer all the questions. And as we move along, if you have any questions about cooking, by all means, just type it on the sidebar there and we'll answer them as we go. So today's class is all about—
we got a question already?
Yeah,
I love it. So thank you, Sarah, so much for asking how hot should you heat your oil? Honestly, there is no specific temperature. I would not bring it. I would just lightly heat it. You don't want to end up turning the flavor of the oil or the turp sap by heating it too much. So just enough that everything is able to melt into each other.
Yes. Yeah. Not even to a boil, just basically under a boil.
And we will definitely get to ratios. Don't you worry. We've got everything dosed out perfectly for you guys. So we will make sure to not— typically we're going, like today we used a 0.5 gram syringe, and we'll give you all the dosings on that information. But I would typically, just to make it very easy for you to do calculations when mixing it into your entire dish, infusing your dish, use the whole syringe, whether you're doing a 0.5 or a full gram.
Perfect. Thank you, Marnie. That's super helpful. Okay, so we're talking about anti-inflammatory and how it affects us through pain. So some of these ingredients, these essential ingredients that I chose to cook with today to do our menu, really do help and aid in reducing the inflammation in our body, which causes the pain. So we're going to start with hot peppers. Some people may not, hot peppers just may not be your thing, and I totally understand, I get it. But just a little bit, just so you know, will actually help. So if you slowly can sort of get used to it, that's fantastic. I also like to take some hot peppers and I actually infuse my olive oil with it along with the flour. So you can put it in there and make a chili oil. You can also do garlic alternatively if you wanted to flavor it. You just throw it right in. But hot peppers, capsaicin is the primary ingredient in the hot peppers that reduce the inflammation in our body, and it promotes healthy heart and lungs because it dilates and it opens up those lungs and gets your heart pumping. And in return, it balances your metabolism. So that's why I chose hot peppers today to work with.
We do have a quick question.
Sure.
How long do you allow the flour to infuse with the oil? I think you wrote it down on the sheet. It depends on which method you're using, right?
Right. So if you're using the flour, it's about, let's see here. Where did we put? I think it's about like 30 minutes. No, it's going to be about 90 minutes, depending on what method you use. So we have 30 minutes on the saucepan. So if you're doing it on the stove, it's about 30 minutes. In the slow cooker, it's going to be about, I think about 45 minutes or so. Yeah,
I think you said set it and forget it for an hour.
Yeah, in the sous vide, you set it and forget it in the sous vide for an hour and you're good to go, okay? But the quickest one is on the stove, but be really careful. You have to just watch that temperature. You have to keep taking that temperature because you don't want it to go too high, okay? If it goes too high, you lose all those flavors and the terpenes. So just be mindful of that, okay? All right, so our next anti-inflammatory ingredient here that we're gonna use today is garlic. So we have some fresh garlic and that's super healthy for you. It's healthy for the heart. It's anti-cancer properties. So anytime you can get raw garlic, even cooked garlic into your diet, do it. You can never have enough garlic. So we're gonna work with some garlic today and we're gonna saute our greens with the garlic today. Then we have turmeric. Turmeric is amazing. I have dried turmeric here. The fresh turmeric is a little bit hard to find. I actually couldn't find it in the store that I was shopping in for our ingredients today. But it sort of looks like skinny ginger, if you would, and it's really orange. So it'll look like that also, okay, that beautiful color. And when you're using it, it actually imparts that color into your food. So keep that in mind as well. So curcumin is the active ingredient in turmeric, and that helps with antioxidants and anti-inflammatory. And then lastly, we're gonna use some salmon. I have some fresh salmon here that we're gonna saute up. And salmon is loaded with omega-3 fatty acids, and those are really good for your brain function, and that's the reason why I chose to use this. I chose salmon today. So anyway, let's get started with the menu. I'm excited. And you guys, I know you have all of the recipes that were sent to you, so hopefully if you make this menu, just take a moment, read through, understand what we're gonna do, have an idea and get your ingredients all set up. So something called mise en place is, maybe measuring out your quinoa, measuring out your garlic, which is what I did here. Everything is all pre-measured, all ready to go, okay? So then you don't have to wonder and worry and stop and, it just really helps you and it's a beneficial thing to get used to. So first we're gonna do is we're gonna start with the quinoa because this takes the longest out of all of the menu items that we're gonna make today. So we're gonna do the quinoa and we're gonna put it in the back of the stove and we'll just set a little timer and so set it and forget it, and then we'll move on from there. So for the quinoa, what you do is you take your cleaned quinoa in a nice saucepan. I think we're doing about 1.5 cups. We're gonna pour that right in. And then we're gonna take about 1.5 cups of, 2 cups of water, which I'm gonna use this to measure. I already used my measuring cup. Excuse my back for 1 minute. So we're just gonna measure out 2 cups of water. Okay. We're gonna pour that into the pan with our quinoa. And we're gonna add a little bit of salt. Grab my salt over here. About 1 teaspoon of salt. And then we're gonna add in our turmeric. We got about 1 teaspoon of powdered turmeric. And wherever you can sneak this stuff in, do it. It's so beneficial for you, and I love it. Okay, and then I like to add a little bit of oil. So we're gonna use our infused oil, but I'm gonna switch out with some of this oil over here. I actually have infused hot oil. So I'm gonna cook with the non-infused today so everyone here at Chesacanna can actually enjoy the meal when we're done. So we're gonna put in our oil.
Now. Ooh.
Great. Okay, so now what we wanna do is give this a little stir. And then we're going to bring it up to a boil. And once it comes up to a boil, we're actually going to put the lid on and turn it down. And then we're just going to let that cook for about 15 minutes. Okay, so we're going to come back over to the stove over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in the back since we're not going to use this back burner for a little bit.
So real quick,
yes.
As far as what you use as far as your infused oil goes, say, you know, we were using the one infused with the citrus sap since it was already made today. How much oil did you just put in there?
So I put about a tablespoon of oil in that. The recipe said, yeah, it's a tablespoon, sorry. Yeah, it was about a tablespoon. See, I didn't really measure. I probably should if you guys.
She's a chef. She knows what she's doing.
Kind of eyeball it. But yeah, it's about a tablespoon in there.
So that whole batch of quinoa, she's going to be doing a lovely light dosing throughout your entire meal. It's going to be perfectly paired. So with just that tablespoon, that whole batch of quinoa now has 11 milligrams of THC in it.
Thank you, Mommy. That's super helpful for that. Yeah, so great. All right, so we're going to bring that to a boil. While that's coming to a boil, we're going to move on to our next recipe, and that is going to be the sauteed greens. So we're going to take, again, our olive oil. I'm going to bring everything over here so you guys can follow me over here. We have the overhead camera, so hopefully that will...
we are going to switch cameras so you guys can get the beautiful overhead. Look at us. It's like we're on the Food Network, you guys. Feels so fancy.
Yay. All right, so you guys, I'm going to use about a 4-quart Dutch oven here. And the reason why I like to use that is because it holds a lot of greens. We have a nice big bowl of greens over here. I'll hold it over here so you guys can see. We have a huge bowl of greens. So I want it to be able to hold, and I want enough room. So I'm going to turn this oven on. I'm going to go for about a medium. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to measure out our oil again. So again, if you're using the infused oil, we're going to do about 2 tablespoons of oil. And you basically want enough to kind of coat the bottom. But for dosing purposes, please measure. And I love what Marnie always says, start low and go slow. All right, so we got our olive oil in there. We're going to dump in our onions. I have my onions all chopped again, going back to that mise en place, all ready to go. So we don't have to stop and the oil burns while we're cutting our onion. So we're going to dump that in and we're going to bring that up a little bit higher, get these going. And then once that gets going, I'm going to add in some red pepper flakes. Now you can use crushed red pepper flakes, or you can use these beautiful fresh ones that I found in the market, which I absolutely love. And to get the flavors, if you throw this in whole, it won't get really hot. The only time it'll get hot is if you expose those seeds, okay? So that's what, the seeds and the veins is where all the heat is held. So you want to sort of break that up so you can get a little bit of that heat. But if you're just starting out with the heat, then go ahead and leave it whole, okay? I like to do about 3 in here. And I'm going to add 1 more broken up just so we can get some heat in that dish. Okay, so now this is starting to go. I hear it starting to sizzle. If you also wanted to add a little bit of oregano, you can add a little bit of oregano. I just so happen to have some fresh here. I know I'm going off the menu, but the recipe, excuse me, but not to worry. These recipes, whenever I write a recipe and I'm teaching, I like to tell everyone that my recipes are super flexible and you go ahead and make them your own. So see how I'm adding oregano? If you have dried oregano at home or thyme, feel free to use it. You're just imparting some more flavors in there, okay? So it's okay to go ahead and, make the recipe your own. So here we are, starting to sizzle away. Great.
Already looks so good.
Already. Any questions while we're waiting for these onions to sort of break down?
Well, I guess while we're at it, we can, because we don't have any new questions at the moment yet, but we can totally give them a nice little breakdown as far as if they're making their oil. We can give them the ratios for it.
Sure.
And let them know kind of how they can take this information and bring it with them when they want to get something different where it's not testing the same as the products that we're using.
Right. Okay.
Do you want me to?
Yeah, if you want to start that and I can sort of.
Absolutely. All right, you guys. So going back to that dosing question that we have, the ratios and all. Since we are using the citrus tsunami, I'm going to give you the specifics on those. So we used a 1/2 gram. While I typically, working with a full gram is super easy because then it's just about moving that decimal point over 2 places, and that's how you find your milligram. But since it's the 1/2 gram, an easy way to figure out that is to go by the 500 milligrams total as far as your amount goes, and then you're going to multiply it by the THC. And in this one, we have it at 71.42%, and that will give us a total of 357 milligrams in this oil.
Yeah,
and
that's
since
for
we
all
use
of this, just
yes.
so they have a full understanding, it's for the entire
that whole
2 cups.
2, and that will be, here I can switch it while that's moving. I'm going to switch it on back to us. Okay.
We're just switching views.
Tyler's
Sorry,
helping me out real quick.
Little technical difficulty, we'll get through it.
Just trying to move the camera back.
Hang in there with us.
There
okay,
we
here
go.
we are. All right, now we're back. Sorry about that.
All right, so as you can see, she's showing off the 2 cups of oil that we decided to infuse. Again, since Chef Laurie wants to infuse everything that we're throwing down on this plate, we want a nice generous amount so that it's not overwhelming for your party. Everyone can have a good time.
Right.
So for the 2 cups, I like to break it down into tablespoons and teaspoons just because those are the most used in most recipes. So for your oil, working with the citrus tsunami specifically, you're looking at per tablespoon 11 milligrams and per teaspoon 4 milligrams. So if you're ever just making your oil and you want to just put it in your eggs in the morning, you want to infuse anything, that is a great way to figure out just how much you're dosing yourself.
That's it. And then just make sure you always measure, and you know your tolerance, so you know where to start, and just take it from there. Yeah. All right, we're going to come back to our onions. They're sauteing up really nicely. So that's been about maybe 3-4 minutes, which is good. So now we want to take our chopped garlic. I have it in a little bit of oil only because I wanted it to just hold up until we actually started this demo. Keeps it fresher that way. So there's just a little bit extra oil in here, but I'm going to scoop all this out.
Oh, it smells so good. I can smell it through my mask. It smells so good.
Yeah. Thank you, Marnie. And you can smell that oregano, that fresh oregano coming through, which is nice. And again, we just added it because we had it. So if you have any other herb like thyme or even a bay leaf, you can add into here right now. That would be fantastic. So once this garlic gets a little bit toasty, we're going to hit it with a little bit of vegetable broth. You can also use, am I under the camera? There we go.
Oh, real quick, Sarah did ask how many tablespoons in 2 cups. That is 32. 32 tablespoons. Are you all impressed with me?
Yes, she did her math.
And for those wondering, 32 tablespoons, but 96 teaspoons. I did some math earlier, you guys.
Yes, saved us. Thank you, Marnie.
You are very welcome.
Okay.
And actually, I have a side question. So we are being asked, someone just noticed that our class is being recorded. If this video will be available to the public post-class. And awesome. That is a 2 big thumbs up I'm getting, you guys. Yay. Yes. So you will be able to tune back in with us if you've missed me and Laurie, because you know you had such a good time with us and want to run through everything again.
Wonderful. Thank you. I love that.
So with the 2 cups of oil, we specifically were using the terp sap this time around, and that was a 1/2 gram of terp sap. However, if we had used the lavender jack flower that we had shown prior, that would have been 1/8 of flour, testing at 15.95% THC. And that one, with doing the same calculations we gave before, would equal to 553 milligrams. So then you'd have a bit more of a bang. But since we're going on the light side, we're working with just a 1/2 gram of terp sap today.
Yeah. So that's why it's important to just always measure so that you can actually know your numbers and, know where you're at. So Marnie took the time before to actually help me out and do those numbers for us. So when I was at home looking at everything, I sort of wrote down everything that I knew I would need, but she further broke it down into the teaspoon and tablespoons, which is good. Okay, so here we are. Our garlic is nice and toasty. This smells amazing. So I just want to deglaze this pan a little bit, but what we're going to do is we're going to use some vegetable broth, or you can use white wine. If you have white wine, it's even better, and the smell is amazing. So I'm not going to do the liquid just yet. What I want to do, because the reason why I'm going to do the liquid last is because I actually want to catch all of the steam that's going to come out of the liquid, which is going to help wilt our kale, okay? So I'm going to add the kale in first. And then I'm going to hit it with a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and then we're going to add in our liquid, which in this case today, we are using the stock. So we'll add a little bit of salt. And again, I think that's about a teaspoon of salt. You can go less if you don't want that much salt. I'm going to grab my fresh cracked black pepper. I'm going to put some of that in, and now I can really smell that garlic. It smells amazing. Now we're going to hit it with a 1/4 cup of our stock. So you hear all that? And cover it right away, and you capture all that steam, and that's what's going to help the kale wilt down and cook and make it nice and soft.
We did get a quick question about the approximate cost of church staff. Rhythm tends to sell it most places where I've seen it, $50 for the 1/2 gram. We don't have any full grams in-house. They typically tend to run for 70 to 75. And a great day to come in and get it would be either a Monday or a Friday. Feel Good Friday, Medible Monday. Both days you can get 15% off that church staff.
Awesome, very good. All right, so I'm going to move this pot in the back so that we can use the front for our salmon. So I'm going to turn it back up. I was on a medium-high heat. Oh, doesn't want to turn on for me. Okay, no biggie. We're going to bring it on this side. Always be careful of the handles. They do get hot. All right, let's bring this over here. Turn that back on. Hey, we're really cooking, you guys. This is live cooking. So, all right. We're going to leave that closed for maybe about another minute or two. And in the meantime, I'm going to heat this pan for our salmon, and we'll get started with our salmon. So we want about a nice medium heat. And I'm going to get the pan hot before we add the salmon in. So let's peek at our greens over here. I'm just going to give it a quick stir. And then we're going to let it cook for another minute or two, and then that's going to be done. All right, coming to our salmon. We have our beautiful fresh piece of salmon here. And what I want to do is coat it generously with some of our infused oil. And we're going to get some fresh cracked black pepper. And I love to use some sea salt. This is a Maldon sea salt. It's nice and crunchy, and it forms a really good crust. So that's why I'm choosing to use that salt instead of table salt. So measure out your oil. So I think in here we have about 2 tablespoons. Yeah, but we're just gonna coat 1 tablespoon first over the salmon just to give it a nice light coating. I'm gonna coat the skin on the bottom and the flesh on top. Okay, that's beautiful. So first what we're gonna do is a little bit of black pepper. And then we're going to come back with our beautiful sea salt, nice flaky and crunchy, and it forms a really beautiful crust. And it actually has a really creamy flavor to it. So that's why I choose to use sea salt. Now we're going to flip this over, and this is going to be the best part. Crunchy salmon is super yummy. It's like eating a really crisp piece of like chicken skin. If you're into chicken and that's your thing, that's fantastic. So you can relate. So we want to get this super, super crispy. And then coating this in a heavy layer of pepper and salt is really going to help us do that. So season that generously. So, okay. So we're going to come over to our hot pan and make sure that's good and hot. Yeah. All right. So the trick is when you're cooking salmon and you want crispy skin, you have to, well, it's not exactly a super hot. You want to hear a high sizzle, but we're getting there. But anyway, you want to make sure you don't touch that skin. I'm just turning the flame up a little bit. Don't touch that salmon. Let the skin do its thing. Okay, so we're just going to let that cook for about a minute or so, and we're going to come back to check it. In the meantime, I'm going to turn off our greens, check how they are. You don't want to overcook your greens because they can turn brown and they won't look as pretty on the plate. So I will show you guys what this looks like. This looks amazing. I'm going to pour it actually into this bowl over here so I can show you. I'll bring it over here. I want you guys to see how nice it is right now. So it's nice and bright and green. Let's hope I don't drop that. This is a heavy pan. All right.
She's very strong.
Oh my gosh, it smells so good. So if salmon is not your thing and you still want to make these greens, you guys, a great alternative to this dish is I would add a can of white beans. It is an amazing dish all in itself. You don't need any protein other than that. So as you're cooking everything and when you added in the kale is about a good time I would add a can of beans, any beans of choice, but I like white beans. Cannelloni is great. So you can add that in at the same time as you add your kale. And I would strain the beans, rinse them, and then add it in. And then you'll have a complete meal. But that's our greens. You can see how pretty it looks with our red pepper, our onions. Smells so good.
So good.
All right, so we're gonna check our salmon over here and our quinoa is cooking away. The salmon is doing its thing. Yep, it's not ready to be touched. Maybe if we have any questions on cooking questions or Canna questions. We'll take some questions at this point, if there's any. Okay, no biggie. We'll set this aside right here so you guys can see it. This is our finished dish, in case you guys are wondering.
Oh my goodness, yeah, you guys gotta check this out. It is,
ooh, nice and yummy. I'm gonna get a piece of lemon set on the side here for when that fish is done. I'm gonna do a squeeze of
you gotta get the
lemon.
360, you know? Gotta get real in there.
Nice. And while you're searing that salmon, it's nice to take some fresh herbs also. That's in the recipe as well. And we'll throw that in the pan, and that is gonna help impart some flavor also. If you wanna get real fancy, let me show you what we can do with these beauties. I love a seared tomato. Just take some of these like this. We're gonna come back over to the pan, and we're just gonna pop them in the pan, just like that with the salmon. And they're gonna get charred in there, and it's also really pretty presentation in the end as well. All right, so bring these ingredients over.
Those charring.
All right, so our skin is looking good. I'm just gonna sneak a peek. And you guys, if you're checking your salmon, it's definitely not ready yet. It's still a little soft under there. But if you're checking your salmon, and if you're not using a nonstick pan, if you're using cast iron or stainless, and it's sticking, just let it go. Don't force it because you'll rip the skin. It'll release when it's ready. When all those proteins have coagulated, you'll know when that salmon's ready to turn. So I just so happen to be using a nonstick here, and I can tell it's just a little bit still soft underneath, and we're looking for this really super duper crispy skin that we have here. So just take another minute or two. And I don't want to add my herbs into the pan just yet. I'm going to actually wait until I flip it onto its flesh side because I don't want the herbs to burn. So we'll do it toward the end. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to add a little bit more oil. So again, if you're using your infused oil, this is going to be the second tablespoon, I believe. Is there a tablespoon in here? Yeah. So it calls for 2 tablespoons. I only added 1. I'm going to add the second tablespoon when I flip it. So I have enough to toast our herbs and to also get these nice tomatoes going. And just leave those tomatoes in there. They'll do their thing. And you'll see how pretty they'll look in the end. So be really careful when you're frying. It splatters. That's the only thing. Because of all the moisture in the salmon, it makes a mess, but it's so worth it. We'll give it another peek underneath. I want to see how we're looking. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
so right before I flip that is when I'm going to add my next tablespoon. Okay, let that heat up real quick. Again, being really careful of that splatter. And hold it away from you, like I'm doing. Just tilt your pan away from you when you flip this. There you go. Look at that beautiful crispness. Now I'm going to lower my flame just a little. Okay, we're going to let that strike. Now be really careful when you add in herbs into your pan, because again, all the moisture, that's going to splatter as well. So if you have a splatter screen, you can actually use that. That would be a really great thing to have while you're making this dish. Another good thing, if you ever wanted to infuse some more garlic, you can just take a whole garlic clove. I didn't even peel it. I'm just going to cut it right in half, and I'm going to throw that in the pan as well. Again, I'm altering from the recipe, but I'm making it my own. So if you guys want to add anything else that you think, you might want in here, by all means, make this recipe your own.
We may have lost the overview at the moment, but if you guys have any questions about what's going on over there in that tasty pan, you just let us know, and I can tell you from my seat, it smells incredible.
I'm just going to grab a spoon here.
All right, somebody actually has a question that I truly don't know the answer to. So, Chef Laurie, when you flip your salmon, what is the approximate time you use to cook the salmon? Do you have a range?
A range of time? No, but I always go by looks, and I don't like to overcook my salmon. So maybe about like a 130, maybe a 125 if you're temping it would be a good idea. But you know what, you guys, I really just go by looks. So it depends. If you like your salmon fully cooked, then this is going to take probably a good 10 minutes in total. So I did about maybe 3-4 minutes on the one side, and then we're going to let this sit because it's fairly thick. We have about 1 inch of salmon here. So we're going to let this go for maybe about another 4 minutes, and we'll have a nice medium inside. It's smelling really great. And you can see I'm pressing it, and there's a lot of give in there, so I can tell it's still rare. So. All right, I'm just going to give a peek at our quinoa and see what we're doing there. Okay. I did shut it off only because we forgot about it and all my water got evaporated. We got a little sidetracked, but that's okay. I made some pre.
Sounds like what happens to me in my quinoa typically.
Turned out really well, you guys. Did we get our overhead back? It's okay. Quinoa is very forgiving. So what I did was I forgot about the water, and it almost all evaporated while we were moving on to the greens. So what I did was I put the lid on it and I shut the heat off. And because it's so tiny and small, the greens, it actually really cooked it by sitting there. So that's a good thing. So we're almost done with that, and we actually wound up saving that. So that's really cool. All right, so this is coming together quite nicely here. And then what I like to do, I'm not sure if we have the overhead back, but I'm going to actually take the salmon and I'm going to turn it on its side because it's a nice thick piece. If you could see that, I'm going to sear each side. And if it doesn't stand up, just hold it with your tongs. I'm going to give my tomatoes a little turn. They're charred so beautifully. They're good. And I'm going to turn it on this side. I'm going to get our plate ready over here. I'll bring it over here so I could show you guys the finished product. Okay, so this looks really nice. I'm going to let that sit there for just a moment, bring our quinoa over. And how I plated this beautiful dish over here was pretty much, I took the quinoa, placed it right in the center of the plate, just like so. Just make a nice mound in the middle. Okay. And we're going to take some of those beautiful greens we sauteed. I'm going to add them right alongside. Look at all those pretty colors. So beautiful. Great. Then we'll bring over our finished salmon. Look at that beautiful color, that beautiful char. So when you present crispy skinned salmon, present it crispy side up. And then look at these beautiful tomatoes. Just a little added extra touch. Because we had it, we added it. And then if you want, get all that good bits out because that's your infused oil. I'm going to pour it right on top of the dish. Don't want to waste that.
That was
That's
the
good
rock
stuff.
star move right there.
Yeah, that's the good stuff. So basically, you can see it's really not like a hard process. It's all about just planning out, having all your ingredients ready to go, and then that's your dish.
So from the calculations I've been doing in my head, because I was like, ooh, I want to eat literally every single bit of food on that plate, how much am I going to be dosing myself? So just from what I've seen, it'll honestly just depend on how much you take, like you're portioning out, just how you portion it. But it looks like from what Chef Laurie has put down, we've got about 5 or 6 milligrams in the veggies, because we did about 2 tablespoons in there. We did about 2 tablespoons in the fish, right?
We did.
So that bad boy right there is definitely going to be 22 milligrams itself. That is a 22 milligram fish. Who'd have thunk? It's really happening. And then that quinoa has, did we do 1 or 2 in the quinoa?
I think there was 1 teaspoon in the quinoa.
Okay, so we're at like
Yes.
16, 17, 18, 19.
Tablespoon.
1 tablespoon, yeah, perfect. So we are a little under, probably about an 18 milligram meal right now, which is really honestly a wonderful, wonderful way to help dose a lovely meal. I think that's a really wonderful way to go. And then of course you can always do less oil if you really do want to go on that just nice and lightly medicated way.
Yes.
Again, low and slow.
Low and slow is the way to go. Absolutely. So you guys, thank you so much for joining. If you have any cooking questions, please by all means just put them in the side there. I hope you enjoyed this class. This is my first one here at Chesacanna, and hopefully many more to come.
I was going to say, I hope it's not going to be your last. I'd love to have you back personally.
I'd love to be back. Thank you for having me. If you guys have any questions, or excuse me, not questions, if you have any recipes that you want to see or any ideas, you can feel free to shoot us an email or a text message or drop us an Instagram DM. That's great. You can find me at Chef Laurie, Laurie on Instagram, and my email is cheflaurie@yahoo. Love to hear what you guys have to say. Any suggestions would be great, but I think we're going to continue this health series for a little bit. I think the next one we might do would be for anxiety. I think at this moment in time, in many of our lives, 2020, 2021, that would be a wonderful class. So anxiety is the next one. Any recipes that you want to, see along those lines, reach out. Otherwise, we're going to have some nice surprises for you in the future. Thank you all for joining. I appreciate your time. I hope you enjoyed this class. Have a good night, you guys. Thank you.
Yay! Thank you, guys. Thank you for all your feedback. Thank you for joining us today. Cheers. See you next time.
Bye.